Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Madu Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture, as well as the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. And I am here today for part two in our Kimoyo series in regards to the Kimoyo Cosmogram. We're starting your initiation process and explaining the sign that I came up with to represent the Kimoyo concept. So we will get into part two of this conversation, which has to deal with the concept of initiation itself. So, all that and more when we return in just a bit. Thank you for your return. And we are about to get it in right about now. So, as stated before, this is the lesson two in the initiation into Kimoyo Cosmogram. And I want to first thank each and every one of our Patreon supporters. And so, as always, you will be the first to grasp the lessons and some of the interviews as one of the perks for supporting this channel and supporting the development of the China into film that is coming up. So, and we have a big announcement with that coming up soon. So, keep your ear to the streets. And for those of you who are later watching this and would like to support the channel and have some perks along with it, please consider joining the Patreon page. And that is patreon.com/asarimhotep. And every contribution helps. So, as we recall from the last conversation on Kimoyo, the idea is to have a modern series of symbols to represent general African concepts, as Africans, of course, have their own signs and symbols, but they're for or related to the individual ethnic groups from which these signs and symbols emerged. And so we want to create some things just for African Americans in our thought, and then some things just for African spirituality, African philosophy, African cultures in general, the ones that have these aspects as part of their culture. And so the Kimoyo symbol is one of those. And we call these symbols busongi. And I gave a breakdown of busongi in the first video. So I encourage you to go there and check out that first video. But the busongi are kind of like the adinkra symbols. These are symbols that represent deep philosophical thought of the Akan Ashanti people. And each sign and symbol has a name, a proverb, and a lesson behind it. And so these symbols encapsulate and stir in the mind the values that are important to the Akan, Ashanti, the people of Ghana and their communities. So, as you can see, there are a number of symbols here, and there are many, many more that you can find on the internet, or if you go into Ghana, you'll see them all across Ghana. And so, as an example, we have a symbol on the right hand side, Sase Yeduru. The earth has weight. And this symbol represents the importance of the earth in sustaining life. It is a symbol of the providence and the divinity of Mother Earth. So they want to implant into the next generations the importance of Mother Earth as the sustainer of life. And so they value the earth, and in turn, what you value, you protect. And so, in the mind of the Akan, the earth is worth protecting. It is very important to us. So we don't want to do activities that would harm it. And so every single time you see this symbol, it is supposed to remind you of the importance and the weight of the earth. And as a source of medicine, as a source of shelter, it is what holds us down in space. And so we must take care of it at all costs, because without the earth, of course, we would die as a whole. So, with that in mind, you can better understand the nature of the busongi symbols that we are in development of. And so, like many other African concepts, they are rooted in a particular type of cosmology and worldview. And in this text, Writing African History by John Edward Phillips, an author, he's the editor, an author in the text, Daniel McCall, reminds us that Africanizing history must begin with a holistic attempt to understand the total worldview and cosmology of African peoples. And if you don't understand the cosmology, you will not understand how the people see themselves in relationship to existence and how they govern their societies. And with that, without understanding the cosmology, you won't understand necessarily many of the signs and symbols that are associated with individual groups, whether you're talking about the Meta Nature, whether you're talking about the Insibidi scripts, or the Adinkra symbols, or the Congo cosmograms. Everything is rooted in their cosmology. And so this is why with the Kimoyo symbol that we have created here, it is the foundation. It is of the worldview, the consensus on the continent when it comes to uh, the cosmogony and cosmology of their studies. And so, we'll see a little bit more of that as the lessons progress. But today we're just going to talk about initiation and how to open our eyes to be able to see the interconnections of these different types of relationships that make up life, and how that is incorporated within the symbol itself. So the symbol is supposed to remind you of this interconnectedness and our relationship to the cosmos and our duty as children of the earth and children of the stars. So we continue. And this process in which we're talking about here is what I've called putting on your African thinking cap. That is the creative application of African philosophy, CAP being a acronym for us. And so this is just, the expression of my many decades of study of African religion, African philosophy, cosmology, linguistics, culture, and heritage. And so this is my creative contribution to that evolving discourse and finding new and meaningful ways to discover what it means to be human in the African sense. And so these are the foundational Kimoyo symbols for us. And the symbol on the left is the one that was initially introduced. and the one on the right will have its own lesson. So one of these lessons, either lesson 4 or 5, will deal with this particular symbol here on the right hand side. So just be a little bit patient with us, and we'll continue with the symbol on the left. And in many respects, they're just different ways of kind of conveying similar concepts. But these are the two busongi, foundational busongi, that you are being initiated into in terms of understanding this concept of kimoyo. And so what is it when we talk about kimoyo? And so I've done entire lectures on this, and you can find them on the YouTube channel. And so this is just a brief definition. Kimoyo for us is the art of adding life to life. It is the art of vitality and prosperity, or the spirit of vitality and prosperity. It is the art of making things to flourish in all areas of life. And this will make more sense as time progresses. And so this term kimoyo consists of two morphemes, the ki prefix and the moyo root. And the word moyo literally means heart, like the physical heart. And from there, it has derived meanings of spirit, soul, life, vitality, dynamism, and related concepts. And it's also even used as a greeting. So it's a form of blessing that is bestowed upon someone when you greet them with moyo. And the ki prefix is a prefix dealing with the manner of, the art of, a skill set of. And so this is why we define it the art of adding life, adding moyo to life. And so, what is initiation? Now, you're going to read a lot of variations on the definition of what initiation is, but I want to introduce a few concepts of initiation that many may not be aware of. Some of this stuff you've probably seen cited in my book, so some of you may be familiar with them already. But we are going to talk about initiation and how this symbol represents even that process of initiation. And so, to Dominique Zahan, in his text, The Religion, Spirituality, and Thought of Traditional Africa, he states that initiation in Africa must be viewed as a slow transformation of the individual, as a progressive passage from exteriority to interiority. It allows the human being to gain consciousness of his humanity. So it is a process, for him, a slow transformation of looking at the external world, but finding the power within you, in the relationship within you, um, or as the outside being a reflection of your insides. And it is to find the consciousness of your humanity. It is a process of transforming a person into a human being. For Amadou Hapatiba out of Mali, he says the purpose of initiation is to give the psychological person a moral and mental power which conditions and aids the perfect and total realization of the individual. Again, this is a more fancier way of stating exactly what Zahan stated, in terms of it allows the human being to gain consciousness of his humanity. And so we're trying to develop conscious beings in human beings. And so, according to Malidoma Somé, in his text of Water and the Spirit, Ritual Magic and Initiation into the Life of an African Shaman, when a child grows into an adolescent, he or she must be initiated into adulthood. A person who doesn't get initiated will remain an adolescent for the rest of their life. It is a frightening, dangerous, and unnatural situation. after initiation, the elders will pick up a partner for the young person, someone who is selected by their ability to team up with you in the fulfillment of your life purpose. If one obediently walks their life path, they will become an elder somewhere in their late 40s or early 50s. Graduating to this status, however, depends on one's good track record. And so in this particular citation, he is talking about the role in which initiation or as a path to adulthood. And so it's not only becoming conscious of one's humanity, but it is to help one to become a mature and productive adult who is charged with sustaining and expanding and defending the society. So without a particular type of education that not only informs you of the exteriority, but in terms of helps you to understand the powers within you, your interiority, then you will forever be considered, at least amongst the Daguerre people, a child, because you will continue to have childlike uh behaviors and childlike thoughts, and you won't be able to discern and see reality for what it is. And so we'll get a little deeper into that and what I mean by that a little later. So again, this is one of the variants of the Kimoyo symbol. And what I want to introduce is the Bakongo concept of initiation as told to us by the late Dr. Fukiao. And so when we're talking about initiation in the Congo sense, we're talking about following the sun. So as you have or remember from lesson 1, this particular infinity path here represents the concept of infinity, of course, but also the apparent movement of the sun as a metaphor for the movement of the person or organizations or living organisms in life, coming in and out of existence, quote unquote. And so the initiation process is this process of following the path of the sun and maturing in your own unique way and learning what your purpose is. That's another reason for initiation, to discover your strengths and weaknesses and to discover your purpose in life. And so you're following the sun, you're following the path of the sun, so that you can see what has been laid before you, and you see what kind of trails that you need to lead for others who are coming behind you. And so if you recall, on the left hand side here is a representation of the Congo cosmogram called Dikinga. And the Dikinga, this is really many symbols kind of juxtaposed on each other. But what you have here are these little circles, even though this is a still and 2D image, it is supposed to represent a 3D concept, and the suns are supposed to represent motion along a path that is counterclockwise. So this is the path here, and so we start here at V1, where which is called the Musoni stage. This is the conceptualization stage. Then you have V2, the Kala stage. Kala means to be, to exist. This is the human being being born, and then travel along the path of the sun. They're growing and maturing into their adulthood, into their mastery here, known as the Tukula stage. Kula meaning to grow. And finally, becoming an elder and transitioning for a new reincarnation and to follow this path, this process that we call the dingo dingo. So So the initiation, the word or a word used for initiate, or phrase used for initiation in Kikongo is Landa and Tangu, following the sun. So when we Landa and Tangu, following the sun, this is what we're doing here. And that word Landa means follow, and then Tangu is the word for sun. Or you can say dingo dingo dia Landa and Tangu. So dingo dingo is a word for process, um, sometimes a system, you know. And so it's the process of following the sun in its apparent trajectory. And so it's similar in concept to the ancient Egyptian Shimsu Heru, or the Shimsu Hor, the followers of Horus. And we know that Hor is also, along with Ra, a symbol of the sun. And so we continue on this metaphoric journey. And so another way of saying that phrase is Landa and Zila and Tangu. And so Landa, follow, and Zila means path or road, and of course, Ntangu, sun. So follow the path of the sun through initiation. And so Fukiao informs us that initiation is to be given access to vital information that can what? Kanga ye kutula, unlock and lock all doors in and around us. So the process of initiation is to introduce you to some information that can help you uh, unlock the so-called mysteries of life and to know when to close them. They open doors for you because of the relationships that you develop as a result of being initiated. And so he informs us again that there's this thing called Zinga I Tambula Yetimbikisa, which means living is receiving and releasing. And that is what he's talking about here is this notion that you have to know when to receive information. So primarily when you're going into initiation, you're receiving information. And then when you become a master of the information, knowing when to release it and who to release it to. Because information can be dangerous in the uninitiated hand, in the wrong hands. And so we call that the people who are uninitiated in Bakongo tradition as Bayinga. So if you come across the Bayinga, people who have not matured, who have not gone through an initiation process and have been instilled with the values, the great values of the community, and understand their purpose and role in the community and in life, it can be dangerous releasing certain types of information to them. So these citations that I'm talking about here comes from a text called Bulwar Messel. And that phrase Bulwar Messel is actually one of the goals of initiation. And so this is an unreleased text from Fukiao that I just happen to have. And hopefully within the next year or so, it will be, released to the public. So they're just going through some legal issues right now in terms of the rights to publish the text. But hopefully it will be released within the next year or so. So Bulwa Meso is a phrase meaning the power to see what others will not see unless they what? Landa and Zila and Tangu. That means they follow the path of the sun. Having one's eyes open, therefore, being given the enlightenment that can transform completely any human being to a sweet individual, a bright living sun in and around the community. So we're going to see a little later that this following the path of the sun is a metaphor for following those who came before you, who were also enlightened and powerful living sons in the community. So it is a process of recycling and developing new leadership in the community. So you're being taught by the powerful leaders and initiated ones, and they're bestowing upon you the enlightenment, the tools for living, so that now you can become a bright living sun within the community itself. And one of your responsibilities now is to initiate the upcoming generations, to teach them. And so this is a portrait of Dr. Fukuyama on the left hand side. You can kind of see a variation of the cosmogram in the painting here. And these are a few of his books: African Cosmology in the Bantu Congo, Self-Healing Power and Therapy, Simba Simbi, Hold Up That Which Holds You Up. But the text that we're drawing from mainly today comes from Bulwar messel. And so this idea of an initiated one is one who has their eyes open, is pretty widespread across Africa. And so if you remember from, I think it's chapter 6 or 7, where I do an etymology of the word Seba in ancient Egyptian, and we discover that it has to deal with someone with open eyes. And so I first cite here from the Yoruba language that a civilized person, one who's initiated, is one that they call Olaju, the one whose eyes have been opened. And we can see, and one of the things that I demonstrate in the text is that the word seber or seberu, or we say seba, is the S in seba is actually a prefix, and the root is ba. And so you will see variations of this word in throughout the language. So they're playing on words here, because it's one word meaning to shine, and then there's another ba meaning to open. And so in ancient Kemet, we had a variant wabar her, to be clear-sighted. And we have wabaru her, specialist, clear-sighted ones. So these are the educated and initiated folks. These are the specialists, ones who have open eyes, who have clear sight. And so that word her is a word for face or front. And so, but it's used for in terms of eyes, because the eyes are in the front. And so we have a different variation of this phrase called win her. And that word win is a variant of the word ba, meaning to open. And so we have the same phraseology: to open the face, to open sight, open the sight of, be skilled, have clear vision, public appearance, an open face. And so we have soon her, again with this prefix here, this S prefix, to instruct. And so you have this word here, seba, meaning to instruct, also to teach. And then when it's nominalized, it is, a wise person, a specialist. But it's a short phrase for something that we see here. To instruct means to literally cause one's eyes to be open, to give open sight, to give open eyes. So this is what it means to teach, to open a student's eyes to a reality for which they're, and these eyes are metaphors for your mind. So it's really to open your mind to reality. And so those who are initiated are those with open eyes, Bulwar messel, those who have followed the path of the sun. And of course, the sun gives off light. That's why it was phrased in a way, having one's eyes open, being given the enlightenment that can transform completely any human being to a sweet individual, someone with great humanity, also a bright living sun in and around the community, because your light shines when you are grounded in what it means to be human, and you share your light with others. Everything that you do, like this is all metaphor talk, but this is why the sun is the symbol of the human being in Congo tradition and many other traditions in Africa. And so when you're following the path of the sun, you're following the guidance and things from an enlightened individual who has shined their light upon you, which help you to they shed their light on your face, like this Seba star is doing to this individual here who's going through initiation. And so going back to the Daguerre tradition, Melodoma Some informs us that traditional education, this is what we mean by initiation. We say initiation like it's super special and religious, but it's not religious. It's just simply the educational process of a community. So traditional education consists of 3 parts. And I have this bolded in red, the first part, the enlargement of one's ability to see. 2, destabilization of the body's habit of being bound to one plane of being. And 3, the ability to voyage transdimensionally and return. Enlarging one's vision and abilities has nothing supernatural about it. Rather, it is natural to be part of nature and to participate in a wider understanding of reality. So, initiation is supposed to open your eyes to the mysteries of life and to help you see things that otherwise you would be blind to because you haven't been taught how to see. Just like in the Matrix movie, when Neo first was unplugged and he had made the statement something like that his eyes hurt, and Morpheus had to tell him that's because you've never used them before. He's never used his eyes. And so now he's being able to see what was really around him, for which he was blind beforehand. And so that's what initiation, following the sun, Landu and Tangu, is for us. And so we get a better insight into exactly how can you tell a Seba from an ancient Egyptian perspective, a clear-sighted one as we define it. And the inscription of Antef from the 12th dynasty tells us that a Seba is one whose heart is informed about these things which would be otherwise ignored. So while other people, ignore certain things, a Seba, a clear-sighted one with open eyes, one who has followed the path of the sun, would be drawn to this information, trying to solve this riddle. And then it just says clearly, the one who is clear-sighted when he is deep into a problem. That means he's not obstructing his vision, his way, his logic, his thinking is not obstructed. His path of sight is clear. And so the point of having a clear sight, open minds, is so you can be able to better solve problems within the society. A Seba is the one who is moderate in his actions. That means he doesn't sway too far to the left, too far to the right. Where he just absolutely does nothing versus where they're in a rush to do everything. His actions are moderate based upon having clear sight and forethought and considering all points of view. One who penetrates ancient writings. In other words, a Seba is someone who reads, who looks for the wisdom in ancient teachings, who is sensible enough to unravel complications, who is really wise, who instructed his own heart. That means he's self-motivated, who stays awake at night as he looks for the right paths, who surpasses what he accomplished yesterday. So this person is always looking to get better. He's not satisfied with his accomplishments. You notice how you run into people and all they can talk about is what they've done before, who they used to be, who they knew, but they can't tell you how they surpass what they've done in the past. And so this is how for example, the ancient Egyptians were they were rooted in history, but they were always about surpassing what they have done before, not only as individuals, but as a collective. So you'll see certain text where they're talking about that they surpass their ancestors in terms of thought, in terms of accomplishment, but they always revere those ancestors. Continuing, Landa and Tangu. Following the sun is the Bantu way of saying schooling, especially among the Bakongo. It is the process of standing behind the Nganga, the one's initiator master, as the living sun in the community to lead the march on the trajectory path of the sun. And so that's a direct quote from Fukiao there. So an Nganga is a master, one who's a specialist. That is their variant of not necessarily variant, but is their word that is equivalent to a seba in ancient Egyptian. One who is clear-sighted, one who has open eyes, who is a master, a at various things or something. And so they have a proven record of enlightening or shining their light on the community and everybody benefiting. And so we can use this metaphor in terms of the sun in a way in which, like, we know that the sun emits light or photons of light. And it is the sun that empowers much of the life or all of the life here on Earth. Without that sunlight, it would be a cold, dead planet. And so the metaphor here is that the sun, the living sun in the community, is like our sun. Like when they shed in dew of themselves, they provide life to the community. That's why it's Kimoyo, the art of adding life to life. This is what makes you Nganga. Not only that you have skills, that you are of high value, but you are of high value because when you share of yourself, when you give of yourself, just like the sun gives of itself, everybody is sustained because you exist. And so I'm hoping that these little nuances are coming together for you very well. So even the king amongst the Asante is considered a son. So the phrase here, Ohiniye Awia, or Awia, the king is the son. Ohini meaning king. We argue is a dialectical variation of the word Ra. Ohini Ye Awia, the king is Ra. The king is the sun. And so on the right here, you have a Tunfuo Okobahini, Nana Bafora Kwame Kusi, the second, who was a king in Ghana in recent times. And so Ohini or Ohene Ye Awia, the king is the sun. And so just kind of showing you that at least in 3 African traditions, the king is seen as a living son. And so, but in Bakongo, this concept of the sun extends just to any master, any enlightened one, but definitely in Ghana and ancient Egypt, because the king is the lead priest in the society traditionally. So, this is how these kind of concepts connect. And so when we were talking about being a high value man, if you can recall from my previous conversations, one of the 10 characteristics or foundational characteristics of being an African-centered high value man, I argued, is that he is initiated into the ways and values of one's ancestors. So an African-centered high value man is one who landa intangu, follows the path of the sun, who has been initiated into the values, the wisdom, and the ways of one's ancestors. And so the idea of an initiation is being led by an nganga, being led by having mentors, those who have walked the path before you, to shed and feed you their light, and then you taking that, absorbing it, developing your own uh lessons and wisdom as a result of living and experimenting and doing exactly those things that a seba is, according to the inscription of Antef. And the reason why we have the infinity symbol for Kimoyo is primarily with this fundamental understanding and phraseology here, as told to us in Bulwar Meso, that no one can grow strong, wise, and powerful without being fed by the past. So this is why you go through initiation, so you can be led, excuse me, yes, so you can be fed by the past. So the Ngangas who lead the initiatory process for the initiates, the teachers in the schools, in the various different wisdom traditions uh, or institutes, they provide you with the wisdom of old, and it's on that foundation from which you now live and add to the bags of wisdom of the next generations. And so you're being fed with the knowledge that will help you to grow as an individual, but help so that you can be of service, so you can be of value to the society, using the gifts and enlightened minds that you have been blessed with by the Creator. So, this concept of the Ouroboros, or the snake biting its tail, is as old as ancient Egypt. And you find it in West Africa, Benin, and Nigeria, and even in places like Ghana. It's a very old concept. But, this is what the Kimoyo symbol kind of represents, without necessarily having to draw a detailed snake. We're talking about a system. That's what it represents, the life system, the system of life, the coming into being and the uncoming into being of the life forces, of the life materials. And so when we're going through initiation, we're learning how to harness those vital materials and instruments of life to sustain life, and to know how to retransform them so that they can be used for the next generations. And so we continue in terms of our concept of Kimoyo initiation. And so on this path, the Bakongo would say, Ntambi, Zankulu, Bandu Zampa, old steps, but new generations. So again, it's just building off of that concept of being fed by the past, because you can't grow wise. You can't grow powerful without being fed from the past. You can't be fed without that which came before you. So the word landu is used to mean curricula of high teachings. So there's landa, following the path, and then a variant of that word landu with the u suffix means, which helps to nominalize it, means curricula, the instructions, the lesson plans of the high teachings. And so to follow the sun is to discover the path of proven knowledge and wisdom. So again, when you're going through initiation, you're being fed with the information that will help you to sustain yourself and operate effectively within the society and the world at large. It lets you know what foods to eat, what foods not to eat, where to go here to get this type of resource, who are your enemies, how to win wars, how to sustain a marriage, how to raise children, how to rule humanely, how to gain power, how to use power. That's what an educational system is supposed to do. And so Landu is the word used for curricula. And then again, Landa Ntangu is following the sun, following the Nganga, but more so specifically following the path and the wisdom of the ancestors and the proven knowledge that they have discovered and wanted to make sure that the following generations maintain, so that the community can survive into posterity. And so it's interesting that when you go into the temples of ancient Egypt, that you see the sun. And so this image that you see on the right here is from the temple entrance of Medinet Habu Temple in Luxor, Egypt. So when you see this, they're telling you that now you're entering in the place. You're entering a place of initiation. You're following the path of the sun. And so we have this same kind of symbolism in Bakongo as told to us by Fukiao. This trajectory or circular road of knowledge and wisdom has always been laid out before the beginning of the entrance ceremonies. So they would draw these symbols, kind of like the one that you saw earlier in terms of the Dekinga cosmogram, representing the path and the following of the sun. So at the entrance of different ceremonies or initiations, they would draw this to remind the initiate what you're doing. You're following the path of the sun. So it's no different when you go into ancient Egypt and you see on these temples on the entranceways the sun disk with the wings, because they're talking about the movement, the trajectory of the sun. So now you're coming in and getting this wisdom and information. And so Fukiao informs us following the sun is the process through which one discovers the true source of energy, the energy that makes things move and life possible. It is feeding oneself with that energy. Is it not our food transformed energy? Following the sun is not a cult or a religion. It is a way of feeding oneself with natural food first. Not with natural food first, but with energy, the power that is today, and that will be tomorrow, the key to life and living as it was millions of years before us. So remember that for the general African communities, God is existence. It is the power of life. It is the material of life. And so what you're being initiated into is the science of God, the science of the cosmos, and the art of learning the different ways in which life comes into being and is sustained, and being able to harness that for different types of tasks and movements in the community. So you would really have to read the whole text to really kind of get what he's talking about here. But if you have the text Simba Simbi, you can kind of get this as well. So when he talks about Simbi being that living seed energy, the God energy, the principle of life, how to sustain life, how to capture it. How can you go and capture those those aspects of life, be able to utilize it to sustain yourself and your community, and how to transform it and bring it back into the essence to be re-harvested again. So the art of Kimoyo is learning how to harvest life. And so that's what that second symbol, and we'll get into in a future lesson, is going to be talking about. So, you know, and I've spoken on this before, and I wanted to interject this here, especially for us in the diaspora. So, what I argue, and especially when we're developing our own as African American, our own initiation system, is that, initiation from the forefront should help you to answer these four questions, in which I've created this cosmogram to help us uh, understand that concept. And that is, who am I? Where did I come from? What is my purpose? And what must I do to fulfill that purpose? So, following the path of the sun for us, in part, will help us to answer these questions for ourselves. That's why it's about feeding yourself. So now you're being fed, you're satisfying what we call the greater hunger. So we have the lesser hunger and the greater hunger. And we'll have to have a different lesson for that to really kind of explain what we mean by the lesser hunger and the greater hunger. And so what we're talking about here through this process of Kimoyo initiation is feeding our greater hunger. And so part of that process is asking the question, who I be, where have I been, who or what am I becoming, and what must be done. And so for us, following the path of the sun, Landa and Tangu, is designed to help us to answer these questions for ourselves. And so again, that's the whole point of this particular symbol, which we will have a different lesson. But as you can see, it still has that kind of spiral, even though it's in triangular form, essence to it. And that's a dope lesson I can't wait to enlighten y'all with as well. So we'll talk about its relationship to balance. And so this is going to be our symbol of ma'at, of what is equivalent to ma'at, and I'll explain all of that in the upcoming lessons. So again, just different variations of the Kimoyo symbols, which will be explained in subsequent works. And you can, if you would like to support, another way in which you can support is to buy the t-shirts that we have on the Spreadshirt website. So the link that you can get them at is down below. And I believe that is it. So with that said, I thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, just ask them below in the comment section, and y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. Peace and blessings.